There's no way, I'm already so still burning. So hold to me close, now baby, I do what I'm told. Still learning to take my chances, to take my time, to keep on dancing, to walk that line, yeah. You got me shifting the paradigm, no longer wishing, you're my lucky strike. Love the way you ride, look into my eyes, say you're ready to go. $1,000,000 life, yeah. We could roll the dice, act like you're surprised, but you already know. Oh yeah, got lucky overnight. Jackpot when I got the invite. Let me wrap my arms around you, cause I can't go home without you. And my heart just vibe with you, babe. Wanna go sky high with you, babe. Gotta bring you close to tell you that you're my lucky strike. And I got to tell you, if you didn't know, then I got to tell you that you're my lucky strike. And I got to tell you, if you didn't know, then I got to tell you that you're my lucky strike. Cooler than cold, I'm all in. So load up the dice, so heavy. The way that you roll, I'm falling. So I never fall, I'm ready to take my chances, to take my time, to keep on dancing, to walk that line, yeah. You got me shifting the paradigm, no longer wishing, you're my lucky strike. Love the way you ride, look into my eyes, say you're ready to go. $1,000,000 life, yeah. We could roll the dice, yeah. Act like you surprised, but you already know. You're my lucky strike, and I got to tell you, if you didn't know, then I got to tell you that you're my lucky strike. And I got to tell you, if you didn't know, then I got to tell you that you're my lucky strike. I can't let you go, there's no way, I'm already so still burning. So hold to me close, now baby.
Welcome to the RecPoker podcast. My name is Joe Coolis. You can also know me as Joe Cool PhD at times, and I am the individual who runs PsyOps within the RecPoker Nation, or the Wrecking Crew. Jim Reed, who usually gives us the podcast and goes through things, has decided to give up the microphone today and allow me to present. This is poor judgment on his part, but I got excited when I heard who the guest was who was going to come in, and I said, oh my gosh, winter is coming. And apparently that set off some sort of Canadian alarm, and he has to go stand on a wall someplace. So I'm going to continue to serve as the podcast director for today, and hopefully I don't mess too many things up today. Please bear with me if I should happen to do that. I do want to say thanks for joining us today. We have an excellent guest. We have Brian Winter, also known as the Golden Blazer. I'm going to let him explain what the Golden Blazer is, because honestly, I don't know. But I do know that is the name that he goes by. And I think that we're going to have a great conversation today. A few things to kind of go over is that we are going to we have a real treat for you to going forward, and we're going to cover the guest, we're going to cover the home game, and all of this is going to go forward as usual. I always want to thank our sponsor, including the Running Aces Hotel, Racetrack, and Casino. I want to keep everybody in mind that most of what we do here is free, and we're a largely volunteer-based organization. So we really rely on you and our sponsors in order to help us to pay for the things that you see going on here. If you want to participate, you can also become a premium member for a meager $15 a month, and that can help support the things that we're doing here at RecPoker and keep providing you the content that you have come to enjoy and come to like. And just because it's the holiday season, we have a special promotion going on. We have decided that if you are a nice person and you put nice into at the checkout during the month of December, you can get your first month for only $1. Now, here at RecPoker, we play for fun, but it's more fun when you win. So when we study together, we play together, and we celebrate together. And if you don't want to participate in the premium membership at this time, come on for a free membership at RecPoker, where you can join simply with an email address and a smile. And that gives you access to our home game and a community with which you can play poker. Now, as I said before, Jim is letting me host the show today, but he is only one man, and I cannot actually do all of the jobs that Jim does. And actually, no man can. And that's why we have the Wrecking Crew. The Wrecking Crew, as Jim calls them, are the wizards that run many of the aspects and provide a lot of the content that you see. And actually, some of them are actually helping me out today by running things in the background, much like the man behind the curtain in The Wizard of Oz. What I like to do is give them the opportunity to introduce themselves so that you know who they are.
Well, I'm Chris Jones. You can find me 5B5 on Twitter or 5x5 in the PokerStars home game.
And I'm John Somsky, also known as Poker Geek Caman everywhere, and I cannot tell the alphabet. And I have not decided, much like Littlefinger in Game of Thrones, I haven't decided who I'm going to follow in this coup attempt here, whether I am backing House Coolis or House Reed.
Well, I'm Jim Reed of Blusteriti in the home game and at RecPoker Jim on Twitter. And I am traveling down in Vegas right now and having a great time. And I'm involved with the Poker Tracker Review Group and the Learn Pro Poker Study Group. And I also make sure that the calendar runs on time over here at RecPoker.
Hey guys, I'm Joseph Wills. I am hockey_poker in Elon's social sandbox. And check out my Be a Better Fish series of articles in the RecPoker page.
Well, fantastic. So without further ado, I wanted to bring on our guest. And you know, I'm more of a latecomer to the poker scene, so I'm not always aware of who the big players are and so on. So I think my first question for Brian Winter is, to somebody who, I don't know, hasn't consumed enough poker content, how are you going to introduce yourself to the world? And should I know more about you than I actually do at this point?
You should absolutely not know more about me than you do. I was basically a no-name online player for a decent period of my professional career. The only reason that I hopped on the live scene was my wife, Rachel Winter, got a photography job with 8131 Media. And so she's been getting all sorts of jobs from WSOP Circuit, Run Good, Poker Series. We're right now here at the Win Encore because she's working for WPT this series. So I've been just basically following her around, and it's a lot easier to play live when you're already in the place. So it's created a very fun and interesting environment where I'm able to just, hop down from the hotel room and play. And I know that one of the most difficult parts, in my opinion, of playing live poker is the journey to get to the casino, especially if you live in an area where, you know, it's a good 45-minute drive to the nearest casino. A lot of times that can be a lot more difficult. So I ended up just really fortunate that over the last year, I've been a 3-minute walk from any poker room that I want to play in. It's been very fortunate.
It's interesting that actually describes my existence quite well. The poker room is about an hour away from me, and that's how I play online poker, because I can't get there fast enough, and I'm not married to your wife, so therefore I don't get to go from place to
That's
place.
great.
You know? It's like, you live in Las Vegas, right? Not Utah or something, where maybe bigamy might follow, but it's, you know, it's probably good. So tell me a little bit about, you know, if you were to say, well, where am I now since you have kind of come onto the scene? I should say, you know, congratulations on the 6 rings, which is 6 more than I've won. It's actually more RecPoker home games than I've won, so it's especially impressive. And if I'm not mistaken, in the running for Run Good Player of the Year award, have I got that correct?
Yeah. So Run Good started a Player of the Year series in the fall, and I was kind of a toss-up to play. I also sports bet pretty prolifically. I also like play slots and things pretty prolifically. So I was kind of a toss-up to really grind poker to that level. And then they came out with the Player of the Year, and me personally, like I really like the concept of like trophies and accolades and those type of things. Like I did a triathlon in my early 20s and did not follow up with any type of like extra fitness and stuff. I just like wanted to be able to say that I had done a triathlon. And now me and Rachel are actually training for a half marathon for the exact same reason, which is that like I just want to be able to go through my life, and I want to be able to say I did all sorts of these things, I accomplished all sorts of these things. And I just like I really like the idea of like a trophy case, and not necessarily like physical trophies, but just being able to say like I accomplished a lot. I did a lot of things with the time I was given.
Even beyond the fact that you can actually just say those things without actually having to do the work for them.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta put in the effort, you know. So I've been chasing that. I've built quite a lead in the first half. It does end in May, as the poker calendar is opposite the true calendar. It starts and ends with the World Series in the summer. So I do have quite a lead, but certainly still a long way to go. I was fortunate to run well in the fall, and was able to, like you said, I won 5 rings in the fall. I'd won one previous in the spring. 4 second places in a row, which has been a little disheartening. Because like, man, like there's a level, there's a level. It's funny though, because I say that, and I took second in the Tunica Main, and everyone kept congratulating me, and I was like, it was this weird
Gradudolences.
Yeah, like I really wanted to win. Like I understand, but you know, I'm glad I took second. I'm not upset, but I am, you know, I was very upset at the time. I went for like a 20-minute walk to just like come down from like not winning, you know.
When you took second, I lit a little candle for you. I'm sorry, someone jumped in.
Oh no, I was gonna say you should ask Buffalo Hanks about finishing second 4 years in a row.
Yeah. I mean, there's some, I've actually thought a lot about this, because I've played a lot of poker tournaments, and I think the absolute worst place to take is the stone bubble, for sure. I think we would all agree that like there's something very disheartening about stone bubbling a tournament, and then like everyone in the room is clapping and, you know, is cheering, and like you're walking out sad. Like that's the worst place for sure. I think that 10th is the next worst, because especially like bigger tournaments, there's a lot of like hoopla that goes on with the final table. A lot of times there's like a final table photo. There's certain camaraderie that comes with like making a big final table. And when you get 10th, you just miss out on all of that. You don't get any of that. And the 10th place prize is like typically like kind of, you know, 5 buy-ins or so, depending on the, you know, the size of the tournament. So you don't end up like making a bunch of money. I think the third worst place is to just like bust like first orbit. Like when you sit down and you're really excited to play, and you're just like, here we go, like I'm in the zone, I'm gonna do well, and you just get coolered, and you're just like, well, like that was that. And then I think the fourth worst place is second, because I've taken 6 seconds now, and it is like you were so close, and you couldn't get it done.
I still think there's a big gap between second and in the first orbit.
That's fair.
One,
for sure.
you get a bunch of money. One, you take the money and you light it on fire.
That is very true.
Don't get more money and see me light it on fire too.
Yeah, and a year from now, those second place finishes won't sting quite as much as they do now.
Well, they don't even sting now. They don't even sting that much now. It's just for about 20 minutes. That's the amount of time it stings for.
That's right. It's like a minor bee sting, you know, just the friendly bees, you know, not the killer ones. So.
Maybe not. You can just need an ice cube. That's fine.
So in preparation for today, I did listen to some other lesser quality podcasts to get an idea of of what it is who you are and find some information about. So the interesting thing is that your poker journey comes from teacher in Mississippi.
It does, yeah.
And from what I understand, part of your reason for taking on poker was to make more money.
Yeah.
Which I did a little investigation, and a beginning teacher in Mississippi makes $35,000 to $40,000 per year, which, given it's only a 10-month gig and you do a little bit of math, it's like $18 an hour. Does that sound about right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Very impressive preparation, by the way, Joe. That's a lot of work right there, figuring all that out. Very well done.
It's a little math.
I was actually. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was just gonna say. I mean. So some people, it's like, well, I was in a corporate gig and I gave up $100,000 a year and so on. Was it that big of a jump to say, well, I need to make more money by playing poker for you? Was it easier to make that jump because of where you were in terms of what you were doing? And the serious part of the question is, these are very different gigs, right? Working with kids and being a math teacher is different from going and sitting in a junior high, which is really what any poker table is.
Yeah. Accurate for sure.
Yeah.
So when I went down to Mississippi, I graduated from Marquette with a degree in mechanical engineering, and I did not want to. I figured out very quickly I wasn't interested in mechanical engineering. I was very interested in the math and the theory and all that stuff, but a lot of engineering jobs in practice, especially entry-level engineering jobs, are fairly just repetitive. There's not a lot of interesting or mentally engaging, mentally stimulating things. And I'd always wanted to be a basketball coach. And I was like, well, how do I get from where I am here to where I want to get to? And so I figured out that I could, Mississippi, very poor education system, as I'm sure we're all at least tangentially aware of. So basically, if I got a master's degree from Ole Miss, I could concurrently teach without a teaching degree because they just need teachers in the Mississippi Delta area. So I went down there. I actually became a basketball coach my very first year because the first basketball coach, he ended up punching a locker. And he didn't get fired for it, but they didn't want him being a basketball coach anymore. I think he actually technically quit, but may have been one of those forced out type of things. So I was a basketball coach down in Mississippi then for 2.5 years. And then I figured out I didn't really want to do that either because what I wanted to do with basketball coaching was the strategy part, I'm going to line this defense up. I'm going to substitute this player in. And high school basketball, if anyone has done youth sports, is much more, hey, bud, we got to turn our homework in so we're eligible to play basketball, And so I enjoyed that, but it wasn't necessarily what I was looking for. And so I just ended up kind of playing poker, Tunica, very close to where I was, maybe a 30, 40-minute drive. So I ended up playing in Tunica a couple times, and I really enjoyed it. And I recognized that poker was kind of that strategy, that pure strategy, pure skill thing I was looking for, that I really wanted to experiment with. And so I've been doing that professionally now for about 4 years, but recreationally for probably about 1.5 years, 2 years before that, just because I didn't want to turn professional without the knowledge that I would be successful.
So when you say Marquette, you is Marquette, Milwaukee, right?
Yeah.
This would explain the lack of accent. Did you grow up in Wisconsin or in the
I
Midwest?
did not. No. Well, I grew up in Ohio, Cincinnati, Ohio, but
Okay.
I don't have the Wisconsin. There's a certain Wisconsin accent that I don't
No.
have for sure.
Yeah. Well, all the people with the best accents come from Wisconsin.
Yeah.
It's just better than people to to that state to the
I
west.
loved my time in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
It is truly, if I were like, I love Vegas. Vegas is my favorite city. Milwaukee easily top 3. I really enjoy that place. I think it's a great place to live. Very underrated city.
The best people in the world born in Milwaukee.
I believe that
Absolutely
too.
true.
I believe that. I know plenty of people from Milwaukee. It's absolutely true.
Yeah, no. So what would you say, we're RecPoker, right? I mean, I don't think we have any professional players kind of on our roles necessarily. Maybe we do, but not a whole heck of a lot. What was the hardest thing moving for you from that recreational setting to saying, you know what, this is what I'm going to bring all my money in from? I guess that would be the hardest thing for me, but what was the most difficult thing for you? So
no, it is the pretty obvious answer, which is that there's no one depositing money in your bank account every week or every 2 weeks. And there's a certain level of fear that comes with, I have to find my own health insurance. I'm not getting health insurance through an employer. I don't have retirement money being matched or things like that. There's a whole, it's very easy to look at, the streams and of course they're always streaming the high stakes cash games, and they're streaming, the big final tables. And so you're watching people play for, 6-7 figures. But it's a lot more grindy than I think people recognize. And there's, a certain level of financial stability that is not necessarily there for a professional. Of course, once you get into the super higher ranks, right? Like I'm sure like Jason Kuhn is not terribly worried about his health insurance. But there's kind of a second tier where it's like, if I'm in for 6 bullets in a 1K, like that starts to wear on your brain a little bit, for sure.
Well, Jason Kuhn works out, I think, like a monster, so he may be health insurance. I mean, I don't know, but
he doesn't need it. He's good to go.
So I do want to give, obviously any of the Wrecking Crew members the opportunity. Just unmute if you'd like to ask a question. Chris, you're unmuted. Was there a question from the livers?
There is, and I'm guessing this might be a relation to your wife, but Michael Miller writes in to say, ask Brian if he gives his beautiful wife Rachel all the credit for his success this past fall on the Run Good tour.
It's funny because also love Michael, big fan. Seen him plenty on the Run Good tour. He's a really good guy. But I will say that there is a certain level of we call it, like me and her call it support team. Like right now I'm support team because I'm taking the Win Series off. I'm just mostly sports betting in our room at Encore and just kind of enjoying myself. And she's working 12-hour days for WPT. And I think there's a certain level of just like, if I'm hungry and I'm at a table, like she'll just bring a granola bar or like if like I lose a big pot and I'm like shaken up a little bit, she can come by and just be like, hey, like you still got it. Like, stay focused. And I think there really is a certain level of having someone in your corner, like physically there, physically present, actually does make a really big difference as far as my ability to perform. And I think that's true of anyone in most fields, where if you feel like you have a good support system, it's a lot easier for you to perform well at whatever task you're doing. And so I'm just really fortunate that I do get that. But I realize Michael Miller's question is like mostly in jest, but I do think that there actually is absolutely something to that.
So, and let me follow up. If I'm not mistaken, your wife is also the person who took maybe the most iconic final table photo of all time. But my question for you is, has she ever taken a photo of you at a final table or a final table win? And why wasn't your photo that good?
Well, it's funny. So 2 things in that regard. One, obviously with the I assume you're referring to the Schulman photo.
Yeah, the Schulman photo. If you haven't seen the Schulman photo, go
amazing
look at. Yeah, it's like the best photo ever taken.
Yeah. I will say that for one, there's a lot more advantageous lighting and things with the WSOP bracelet and things like that. She has taken plenty of good photos of me. There's like I tried to do the card throwing one, but I couldn't really get like a good, split on the card. Like, we've experimented with it for sure. I will say, in regards to taking second, to jump back to that, there is something particularly painful about your wife being the person who's taking the winner's photo, and then you take second, and she has to give you a quick pat on the back and go up to the other person and go, hey, congratulations, like, it's so great that you won, like, we're gonna take some winner's photo, like, it is a very unique situation that, like, I'm probably the only person in the world that has to deal with that specific experience, but it is a particularly painful one, I promise you.
I think in a lot of states that's actually justification for divorce. So it's just, she should just say, no, I'm not taking the picture. I mean, that's my guess.
It's funny because I lost heads up to one of my friends, and that was like kind of fun in a way, because it was it's you develop a certain like friendship with anyone you play heads up with. But when I lost heads up in the Tunica main, the guy that beat me was very much like, I'm so sorry, I just beat your husband. Like, I feel terrible about that. So no, it definitely is. It is a very funny situation, very funny thing that ends up happening.
Jim?
I just wanted to remind speaking of YouTube chatters, we're going to be giving a prize away later in the show for folks to support our fight against food insecurity. We always do a raffle to support food banks around the world. And so stick around to the end of the show for that. And also, we're going to need the names of some famous poker players so that we can play Stake, Study, Stack with Brian later. So if you're watching along in YouTube, suggest some poker names that we can play with Ryan, and stick around to win a prize later in the show. Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, Jim always keeps me on track for different things. So one of the other areas, and we're gonna get back to your wife in a little bit, but one of the areas that I used in terms of some of my research was looking through your Twitter feed, and the first question that I have is, where did the golden blazer come from? I mean, I know there's a shark. I get the shark. I'm bright enough to know that. But the golden blazer is not necessarily always Jim, whatever. But where did it come from? What does it mean to you, I guess?
Yeah. So what ended up happening, I was playing a ESPN competition. Long story short, I ended up winning. It's under my dad's name because I was a minor when I made the account. And so he was like, hey, like, you need to make your own account now. I'm like, okay. And I knew I was 19 at the time, and I was like, this is like, I'm picking a screen name forever. Like, I'm making a decision. And I always thought one thing was really cool was when people use the letters in their name and mixed them up, and like that was their name, right? Like, there's a famous Tom Riddle, I am Lord Voldemort from Harry Potter. Right. Like, I really like that concept. I thought that was really cool. So at the time I was Brian Frenzel. And so I plugged in Brian Frenzel into like a name generator, and there's nothing particularly interesting came up, but Blazer could be 6 of the letters. And I was like, okay, like that, like there's something there. I can work with that. And so I went by Blazer for maybe like 2 months, decided that I needed more to it. So I added the golden because I figured that there's something there. Like, I've got an adjective working with. But that is really where it came from. It's simultaneously like an interesting story, but also like it feels like there should be more to it, but there's really not. Yeah, that's the whole story.
as a nom de guerre, it's not bad.
Yeah.
So the other thing that I found out in looking at your Twitter feed that may not be as aware to either the podcast listeners or even those on the live view is that you are probably one of the very few people that Jim Reed looks up to, literally, because you seem to be very tall. Is that are you really 15 foot tall, or is it just kind of the way the picture makes you look?
No, I'm a big guy for sure. I'm 6'7.5", played basketball, did the whole thing. I get it constantly walking through casinos, which is always really funny. Sometimes Rachel will pretend like they're asking her, and she'll respond with her height, and like it creates a funny dynamic. But no, yeah, I am that tall. It is good you explored my Twitter feed though, because I use Twitter a lot of times just like I use it almost like a journal where it's just like
Mhm.
I'm not really tweeting for like engagement or like for like people to be particularly like interested or not interested in my takes. It's like I just would like to record this as like a memory of something I have and like a thought I'm having in this moment. And it's been really useful for that. And I go back sometimes and relook at tweets and I'm like, huh, like that is a really interesting thought that I had. And so it is to some extent like a public journal that I keep.
Well, it's interesting as I was reading it because what I found most intriguing is, Twitter's all about, or the Hellscape X, whatever the name that you want to call it,
Sure.
is it's supposed to be about engagement. But most of the time, what you get is people just saying, click favored, I love that, but it's not I love it. It's like, I read that. And you have no idea, but you seem to actually respond to people so you had the hot take about playing poker in tournaments and going too late, I believe it was. And you actually responded to people's ideas, which I thought was dangerous, but it can be pretty interesting as well to kind of know who you are.
Yeah, it's actually something that particular take I thought is very interesting because I think it affects rec players more severely than professionals, which like I have no problem and have had a number of heads up battles at 3, 4, 5 in the morning. And my sleep schedule is kind of on that pace where, especially when I'm in grind mode, like I'm waking up at noon or 1 o'clock and I'm going to bed at 3, 4 in the morning. And so for me, playing at those hours, I'm still at fairly high mental capacity. And I think that someone that is not doing that because it's not their job, there's no reason for them to be running those hours. I think it does absolutely end up as a detriment to a lot of people that are have jobs and can't keep that sleep schedule.
Chris, you unmuted. Was there another question or?
I was going to touch on the kind of that. I mean, I can follow up actually around the kind of the late thing because I think that does. Personally, I will see a tournament and I'll see a tournament if I know it's going to go to like 4 or 5 in the morning. I just won't enter, and I do think it has. It is a barrier that I think a lot of. It's a kind of an unseen barrier when people are wondering like why aren't our numbers as high as they could be. It's like, well, that's because you're making people play at 5 or 6 in the morning. And I loved your idea about having sort of a hard stop or at least an acknowledged stop in maybe the sort of the framework or the structure sheet that's like we're gonna go to this point and then we're gonna stop. But I know that's kind of also from an operator's perspective, that's maybe a hard thing to figure out, right? Like to see, are we going to need dealers here or here, and when are we going to need the bulk of them? So, as you think about that more, what do you think is the right balance there?
Yeah, so there's kind of two pieces to it, right? Because on the one hand, like it makes sense to stop at 2 a.m. if people are winded and whatever, but that means you have to have set a comeback time. And if somebody has a full-time job and we played Sunday night till 2 a.m., you got to take off work or figure something out. So I don't think it's like 100%, I wasn't intending it to be 100% fleshed out solution when I posted that because I think it would only work for like larger multi-flight tournaments where, if we're coming back at noon because we've got a final table and there's 200,000 up top, I think people will be able to get a day off work for that fairly easily. I don't think the same thing is true if it's, a $5,000 first place prize and sixth is going to take $800, right? So I think there's certainly some nuance to be had in that as well. I think it largely also would only work for like tournament series, like you mentioned, as far as dealers and room staffing and things like that. In a series, there's people there, right? There's probably another day one going on that day, so pulling one table is not really a big deal. And then, of course, like I think that daily tournaments and things like that still for sure run fine. My issue, honestly, if I'm being honest, and this wasn't something that I really fleshed out in the tweet and wasn't really something that really ended up getting conversed much in the replies, but I think it's more a tournament structure issue. I think that there's been so much emphasis on like having a lot of chips and having a lot of play and not really realizing that the consequences of that are these tournaments have to go until 4 or 5 a.m. to finish. And I think, skipping a level or two here, making the starting stack 15K instead of 20K, or 20K instead of 30K. There are small shifts that can be done in the way a tournament is set up in order to make it end 2 hours earlier, because there's a massive difference between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. in my mind. And in that regard as well, I think that poker in its current form, right, in its like modern, like post moneymaker age, is still really new. We're still kind of inventing new games. We're still kind of playing with the way satellites should run. I know milestone satellites have like kind of started to pick up some steam. I know like the concept of PKOs is like fairly fresh, like probably only a couple years old, or certainly maybe not a couple years old, but like come into prominence over the last couple of years. So there's still a lot of exploration to be done as far as how we should run things as a poker community. And I would hate for us to just like, all right, like we'll just call it here, like this is good enough as far as experimenting with different ways that we can run tournaments and run, structures and things like that.
So I just want to remind those on the live stream to get your questions in. Well, we have a little bit of time left with the Golden Blazer that we'd like to answer questions that you have. So I wanted to get back though to your wife's Twitter feed, which yours is nice, but hers is interesting. In addition to some very cute pictures of, I don't know, you poking your head out of some sheet in the room. That's why. There's also a picture of something that she posted and said, if you know, you know. And I'd like to know what it is, but I'm not actually going to force you to.
I gotta look it up because I'm not 100% sure what photo you're referring to. Let me look.
It looks like this little device that has this little brush on the end of it. And
yeah. No, that's not anywhere near as interesting as you might think it is. It's like a ear cleaner. So you're not supposed to like you're not supposed to put Q-tips in your ears to clean them out. So it's like a little like scoopy device with a camera that you like there's an app, you hook it up, and so you can like look inside your ear with your phone and like scoop earwax out. Yeah, no. It's not anything as interesting as you might think it might be.
Sure. Good cover, whatever. We don't believe you. But anyway. But in reading her feed, which is a great feed, by the way, I mean, yours is great and hers is great as well. There are lots of great pictures there, some things that I think that of day-to-day poker stuff that you don't see. You met her in 2020 and you're a newlywed, right? You got married this year.
September. Yeah, in September.
So September night is not even 4 months. I mean, that's, well, congratulations from all of us here. But that's the question that, the personal question. I did warn you ahead of time. You're traveling around with a newlywed from place to place, and you've made this decision to. It does say you have your place someplace in Chicago, so I'm not doxing you or anything like that. So it's information, but you're going to live on the road. Relationships and settling down and children and all those things kind of very complicated in a poker relationship, right? Now you have it easier because she's traveling with you, but sometimes the long-term goals don't always necessarily meet up. How have you, if you feel comfortable, how have you worked through that life quest question?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question. It's something that we've had a lot of conversations about. And I will also say that when she started traveling, so we meet in 2020 in Illinois, and we end up moving out to Vegas in May of 2020, right amidst the pandemic. We are traveling across the country and we are stopping at convenience stores, and half of them, everyone is masked, and the other half, no one is masked. And it's purely dependent on the state we're in. And it was a very funny adventure to go on and very relationship building as well, I think. And so we had no intention when we met, because I was moving out to Vegas already. And she was like, hey, like, we built this thing, like if I would like to come with, I want to go on an adventure. And I was like, yeah, let's go on an adventure, like let's go do it. And so we move out to Vegas. We live in Vegas permanently for about 2.5 years, and then she ends up getting really into photography, getting really good at photography, and that requires us to go on the road. And so it was really interesting because there was a lot of, I would say we struggled a little bit in the spring figuring out how to navigate our relationship on the road, because there'd be situations where she would be in a poker room until 2 a.m., 3 a.m. I would have busted the tournament 7 hours before that. And in the spring, a lot of times I was just hanging out in the poker room, and it was a very unhealthy situation for me, especially when I would, soft bubble a tournament. And then instead of just leaving and getting to decompress like people do, I would just walk 5 feet and go sit down next to her, still in like kind of a like this sucks mood, which like
Right.
I'm not a very like emotional poker player. It doesn't like affect me super strongly. But when you have to watch the rest of the tournament play out, and then you watch her, like congratulate the winner, like I said, and there's like a certain level of mental difficulty that came with that. And so we had like some conversations in the spring where like the way that we're setting this up isn't working very well. And so we end up in a situation where like, all right, like I'm out. When I'm out of a tournament, I'm not in the poker. Like I'm just leaving the poker room and I'm going to go do something else, whatever that is, whether it's just hanging out in the room playing chess or like doing whatever. I'm treating my job as a poker pro as I would regardless of your job as a professional photographer. And that really made a massive difference in like the way that we were able to interact, because it became much more like we were two people with two jobs, and we would see each other when we saw each other, which is not, after 5 p.m., but just whenever our schedules kind of happened to allow that to happen. And so that was a massive difference we made, and it was a very useful difference. Regarding the other, so at this point, I will say we have a very good, we've developed our relationship to be very fruitful and very positive on the road, and we're very comfortable on the road. In regards to the other pieces of kids and permanent dwellings and things like that, those are the type, like we've had conversations. I think, excuse me, we've agreed it's fairly unlikely that we'll have kids, especially in the like short to midterm, just because our lifestyle just doesn't really allow it. Certainly, if we're traveling with a toddler, it's not going to work. And like as far as permanent residence, it's certainly something we're looking for. I don't think we intend to do this style indefinitely, but for right now, it's very fun. We're having a great time, and we have very good communication. So when we need to shift and figure out different strategies, we do that pretty effectively as well.
Are you guys competitive in terms of your poker?
We are both competitive people. I said there's, I don't know if you saw it because it was a very late addition to my Twitter feed, but I said something about like people that are successful in any field do things with a lot of intensity. There's a lot of intensity that comes with success. And she is very intense with her photography. She cares a lot. She puts a lot of effort in. She's often exhausted at the end of the day. When I play poker, I am drained at the end of the day, like especially if I've played for 8 hours, like it is all of my physical and mental being that I'm putting out there. It's not, I don't do it casually. I take it very seriously. And so I would say we're both very competitive people. We certainly have lots of just like random $5, $10, $20 bets that we will wager on just anything. Like anything. Like I it's like hard for me to even like think about a specific example because she's been so busy, so it hasn't happened in the last like week. But like I mean, today we were debating if someone is 2 degrees separation away from you, is that like 2 people or 1 person? And like that would be the type of thing we would just wager on it. It would be all right, it's $20. This is your opinion, this is my opinion. We'll look it up and we'll figure it out. So we're very much both competitive people. We both do things with a lot of intensity. I think it makes our relationship really great because we both expect a lot from each other. And I think that when you expect your partner to do their best, and in turn you expect that you are going to do your best and they expect that from you, I think it really helps create a relationship where everyone is encouraging each other and supporting each other and really putting their full effort and intensity forward.
Well, I'll look forward to your book on relationship advice called "Prop Bets: The Way to a Great Relationship." So, Jim, you unmuted. So, what can we do for you?
Yeah, Brian, when you and I first met, it was at a Run Good stop, and we were at the same, I don't remember if it was the final table or the second top final table or whatever it was, but I really enjoyed meeting you and getting to know you and Rachel a little bit. You've talked in the past about sort of like sharing your poker experience through streaming and a podcast. Tell us, like, what are some of the challenges from that, or what are some of the hardest parts about sharing your experience through streaming or a podcast or something like that?
Yeah, it's a great question. Streaming specifically, and I actually had a conversation with Poker Face Ash, if you guys know who that is. I had a conversation with her in Council Bluffs where she expressed a very similar thought, which is that when you're streaming your poker game or when you're making content out of your poker game, it is very difficult to stay 100% focused to the actual game because you're also worried about how the game is going to be presented for content. And even if you don't intend it that way, so I streamed online for probably about 2.5 years. And it was very difficult to work on my game to the level that I would like to because I also had to work on stream content and I also had to, put forth YouTube content. And I also had to, make sure that I was engaging my audience in a way that was entertaining. And so it created a situation where I wouldn't say I was becoming a worse poker player, but I wasn't increasing my skill to the level that I would like to because I had to focus on other things. And so I think that makes it particularly more difficult. Me and Jared Smith, who great player, great guy as well. We had a podcast for probably about 6 months, which we really enjoyed doing. It was a lot of fun. There were 5 of us living in that house. And so that was it was very easy to do a podcast when we were all just living in the same place. It was much more difficult to do a podcast when me and Rachel ended up moving out and getting our own apartment. And so that kind of fell apart for that reason, along with a few others. But so yeah, I will say that as far as podcasting, I wouldn't say it affects your game a ton. But certainly streaming and doing content alongside playing makes it very difficult to be 100%, I think.
Jim has suggested frequently that all of the Wrecking Crew members actually live in the same house so that we can do the podcast easier. We've all turned him down because we've heard about his basement, which if he ever invites you over, don't go in his basement because we're not certain what happened down there. So I want to be cognizant of your time, and give the YouTube audience the last chance to ask any questions that you have. But one of the questions that we often ask individuals who have moved from the beginner's level up into being a professional is, what are the things that a beginning poker player can make? What kind of changes can they make very early in their career to have a really good improvement in terms of their play? Or what are some mistakes that you see of when you're targeting us fish out there like me? What am I doing that specifically you're like, that's the guy I'm going to make my next sandwich on?
Yeah, for sure. It's a great question. It's a question I get asked fairly often, and I did kind of expect it as well because like I said, I'd watched a few RecPoker podcasts, and I know it's a question that you guys love to throw on the pros. The biggest piece of advice, and I always say this, is play fewer hands and play them more aggressively than you currently do. It is very difficult for a professional, especially in a tournament, to figure out if someone is just waking up with a lot of hands and that's why they keep raising and check raising me and tripling off into me. It's very difficult to figure out in enough time to make it meaningful in a tournament, to figure out if someone's playing aggressively because they just keep having it, or if they're playing aggressively because they're just an aggressive player. And I will also say the studying I've done, because I run solvers and I run, all sorts of stuff like that. And I'm not going to bore you with the content of that, but optimal play is very aggressive. optimal play is check raising a lot, is raising c bets a lot, is betting a lot. Optimal play doesn't really like to like check and call very, very much, and I think that recreational poker players have a tendency to call and check a lot more than they're supposed to. And I'll also say, like, it's a way more fun way to play the game when you put a pro in the tank. It is like, I enjoy that. Like, I have a great time. I was if you guys know Preston McEwen, who is second right now in GPI mid major. I had a hand in St. Louis where I tripled off as a bluff, and I put him in the tank. And I was like, man, like, this is fun. Like, he ended up calling, but like, regardless, I was like, man, like, I'm having a great time because you are an extremely good player and you are just in the blender right now. Like, it is so much fun. And I imagine that as a recreational poker player, it'd be even more fun to be like, oh yeah, buddy, you think you're a hot shot? Like, guess what? You got to make a decision here. You don't know what I have. So I would say that, like, that would be the biggest piece of information, like, the biggest useful tip I would give is just like just have fun and play aggressively, because that gives you a chance to win too. It's a lot easier to win a tournament if you're getting your chips in the middle than if you're folding a lot and folding down to blinds and stuff.
Your answer kind of makes me think of a follow-up. Is so you've moved from the mean streets of Mississippi into the live streets of Las Vegas and are playing, high buy-in events. And you got the six rings. I'm trying to build you up here because,
I appreciate it.
Yeah, player of the year opportunities. I mean, that a lot of recreational players won't see. But the advice that we get often is, well, it's the same cards, right? Everybody gets the same two cards,
Sure.
and it's middle and different things. How different? I mean, so when you look at learning curves, for instance, or in terms of mastery curves, you will often see that the biggest improvements are often seen at the very beginning. And then you have the tapering off of expertise. I'm not asking you to put yourself in the construct of where you fall in the poker world, because I don't know how you measure that. But at what point do you see players not being that fundamentally much different than what the pros are in terms of the knowledge that they have? Where's that sweet spot where you start really being able to be within reaching distance of the pros that we would come into contact with?
It's a very difficult question to answer due to the variance nature of poker, right? Because, and I actually had this conversation in Thunder Valley with Ben Ludlow, where, like, he thinks, like, his opinion on that exact question was that, like, the difference between like a good mid-stakes player and like a top level high stakes player is smaller than the distance between a good mid-stakes player and like a beginner. And I didn't share that opinion, but I've not played with like high roller high stakes players, so it's like hard for me to be like, oh yeah, like for sure, like this is where we all fall. And even if I had, it would be very difficult to be like, oh, like, because of the amount of variance in poker, it'd be very difficult to be like, oh, like this is where we all relatively fall, because tournament results and cash results can be so much determined by just card distribution. So if I were to give kind of a very low confidence answer to your question, I would stick with what I said in Thunder Valley, which is that I think that there's certain tiers, and I think that the distance between, like, basically, if you make the small incremental improvements, if your VPIP is not 80%, if you're not running like a 80% 20 strategy where it's very obvious to me, like, oh, they raised, they have a good hand, oh, they limped, they have a bad hand, I can just, if they limp, I can just raise and they just always fold. Or once you get past that level, once your pre-flop game is like reasonably sound, which doesn't take a lot of work, I would say you can probably develop a fairly solid pre-flop game in a matter of 10 hours of study, 15 hours of study. If you have pre-flop down, I think that's the big gap. But once you have that, how often are you really seeing, like, I posted a tweet about, like, one of the biggest steps you can take is like figuring out check raise river bluffs. Like when or where do those fall? And like, but like, how often are you really gonna like have an opportunity to check raise river bluff? Like I play nearly every single day, and it probably is like 3 times a month that I'm in a spot where I need to check raise river bluff. And so if you're playing for fun, it's going to be maybe once a year. And so if you miss that spot, the amount of equity, the amount of money you're missing out on is like relatively minuscule compared to like, oh, like should I be raising king 3 suited on the button? Because that's a spot you're going to run into a lot. Like you're going to get king 3 suited on the button, and if you're making that mistake, that's a mistake you're gonna that's a situation you're going to face far more often than a complicated river decision.
Yeah, I think that my review of solver information is it kind of opened my eyes and speaks to what you're talking about is the slight differences in EV gain sometimes that playing something one way or the other, or bet sizing differences. You're not making millions of dollars by knowing a third pot or a six or a 2/3 pot bet size, or even a Smith 6 pot size. I don't think anybody's doing that. So maybe that's the next exploit that you can try. I'd love to talk more about that, but we are kind of running into time. I have one more question. I guess it's last call for any questions on YouTube chat. My question is, since you have decided to take the plunge and become a peanut butter and jelly aficionado, what is it that makes a good peanut butter and jelly sandwich for the Golden Blazer?
It's a great question. And let me tell you that Rachel makes incredible peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And I think there's 2 important aspects that you need to keep in mind. And I'll be curious to see if Jim would agree, or because I know he also is is a connoisseur of a good peanut butter and jelly. The first thing is you cannot be lazy on the location of peanut butter. I think a lot of times when people make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, they make it very quickly, and it's a very centrally concentrated peanut butter distribution, and then the edges end up being very either sometimes even no peanut butter, which is just a disaster, of course. And then the second piece is very important, is peanut buttering both sides of the bread. I think a lot of times people just peanut butter a single side and then they jelly the other side. But if you're willing to peanut butter both sides, I think that makes a big difference as to the enjoyment of the peanut butter and jelly. So, and it is actually very funny you bring this up, because I destroy peanut. There was a time in my life I was eating like probably 3 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches a day. So I'm well acquainted with the banana variation, the marshmallow fluff variation. I'm well established in all the different exploits that one can go about in a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Now, have you had it toasted?
I have had it toasted. I'm not a toasted guy. I understand some people, they'll go a little crazy with the experimentation on the bread and the warmness of the sandwich. But
I don't know, man. I thought we could be friends, but I'm not so sure, because
it messes up the temperature of the jelly. Come on, Joe.
No. You toast
the jelly's cold.
Jelly afterwards. You put it on.
It doesn't work.
Well, Brian Winter, it has been an absolute joy to talk to you today. This went so much better than I even thought that it would. It's been so much fun. We might have to have you back and maybe bring your wife along, and we can actually find out how much you were lying about that particular utensil, in the ears stuff. We still have 2 games for you to play. We have our stake, stack, and study game, as well as our closing the action. And they don't let me ask those questions because I would change things around, and they've decided I'm not trustworthy in any particular way. So I guess that Chris is going to cover this for me, but it's just been a delight. And after that, we're going to do our charitable giving, our giveaway as well. So people should put into the chat food bank so that we can start tallying who's going to be available. You're welcome after that to stick around, obviously, and hang out, because it's just been a blast.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Brian. So here we are. We've got 2 games. These are both sort of speed round games, right?
Okay.
First game we play is called Stake, Study, or Stack. I'm going to give you 3 names. It's much like a childhood game where you probably remember it, where you were going to try to spend the rest of your life with somebody, maybe do something nefarious to somebody else, and have a sort of a nice one-time experience with somebody else. But in this case, you are choosing one person to stake in a tournament or a cash game, one person to study with, and one person to just take all their chips. You're just going to stack them at the table. All right.
Wonderful.
And I was also looking through your Twitter feed to find some names because I want to make this people that sort of you've got some connections to. So the three names I have for you are Jared Smith, Tana Karn, and Ryan LaPlante.
Ooh, all right. Stake, stack, study. I've only done one coaching session in my entire career, and it was with Ryan LaPlante, and it was a very productive coaching session. And I went on directly after that coaching session to win 2 tournaments in the very next stop. So I think absolutely it has to be study with Ryan LaPlante. Extremely great player, very, very knowledgeable about the game, incredible with live reads, incredible with theory, just top. And it's unfortunate. I feel like I have to pick him to study because I'd also like to pick him to stake. But that's not the way the game works. So what can you do? I think that certainly stake Jared, because here's the thing: at the end of the day, Tana and me have a great relationship. But man, there is something about getting the chips from someone that you have such a great relationship with, president of Run Good, and I get to take his chips, I get to stack him. Like, that sounds incredible. So I think it has to be stack Tana, and I'd like it specifically to be like in PLO, because he's got a lot of gamble in him. So I think it would be particularly fun in like, a nice 2-5 or 5-10 PLO game.
Love it.
And then stake Jared. Me and Jared have bought and sold, and I've staked him. Well, I wouldn't say stake in the traditional sense, but he's a great player. Made, I think, day 7, either day 6 or day 7 of the WSOP main one time. Took 3rd or 4th at Orleans, or 5th, I think, in a big Orleans multi-flight. Very, very good player, and a very underrated player. I think he's not like talked about a lot, but very, very skilled, very good player. So absolutely, I stake him.
All right, all great answers. All right, so now we're going into our true speed round. This we want just fast, as quick as the answers come to you.
Yeah.
If you don't like the question or you don't have it, you can just say pass.
All right.
So we're gonna start off with an easy one. What's your favorite poker hand?
Aces.
Awesome.
Not close.
Is poker a game of gambling or skill?
Short term, it is a game of gambling. Long term, it is a game of skill.
What's your biggest poker pet peeve?
When somebody tells me, when I have the underpair and somebody else has an overpair, and somebody tells me they folded one of the cards.
That's a good one.
I don't want to know that.
That's a good one.
Give me the sweat. I don't need that information. All you're doing is wrecking the mere hope that I have.
Yeah, you and I agree. That's one of mine. Is Die Hard a Christmas movie?
I haven't seen it, but based on I do not watch a lot of movies, but based on what I understand, I think it's no, because I think a Christmas, like, you have to have a lot of Christmas in something, like, just like poker is kind of similar. Like, in order for it to be a poker movie, there needs to be a lot of poker in it, not just like a single scene where they're playing.
Right. Is Ace King a drawing hand?
It is a dominating hand. It is a dominating hand, not a drawing.
Are you pro chop or no chop?
No chop, unless I can get a really good deal, and then I'm pro chop. But usually no chop.
What's your favorite childhood family meal?
There's this meal my mom would make called chicken and crackers, which was like chicken cubes with like some type of like cream sauce thing, and then Ritz crackers like sprinkled on top. Nice.
Is a hot dog a sandwich?
Yes, a hot dog is a sandwich, and also a Pop-Tart is a sandwich.
Whoa!
I have a very wide range of what I consider sandwiches, because if you go to Subway, they're serving sandwiches, and if you think about it, there's not really that much difference between like a half cut, and if it's just enclosed, like, that would still be a sandwich. And if it's enclosed, if it's some type of breading enclosed with some type of filling, seems like a sandwich to me.
You toast your Pop-Tart.
I did toast
you have to know.
I do toast the Pop-Tarts though, yes.
It's got jelly, friend.
Yeah.
It's got jelly.
What's one thing you're afraid of?
I struggle with legacy.
Hmm.
Like I think that like meaning in life is a very difficult thing for me to like figure out.
Yeah, I like that. Should vacations be lazy or busy?
Almost exclusively lazy.
Awesome. What's your favorite mixed game?
There is a game called Drama Hawk.
Oh, I love it. Oh,
Yeah.
that is a good game. Not played very much or not played very often. I would love to see that.
Jim just learned that yesterday. We played at the Oasis and Jim played that for the first time yesterday.
It is a great game.
We had some fun with that one.
Drama Hawk, I believe it's 45 or 50, 54 maybe, is even better. If you're looking for even more complication to your variants.
Oh,
Drama
I'm gonna have to get the rules of that from you. Okay. Shuffle up and deal or max late reg?
Max late reg by a lot. Unless it's like the WSOP main, because you need the excitement, like there's a certain level of like fun. But me being on the road, like I play tournaments every day. So if I'm playing them from the start, like it's too much. It's not exciting either. That's why I don't play cash. Like I need the cards to be spread
Build to
out.
something, right? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yellow light coming up. Are you slowing down or speeding up?
Slowing down, and I slow down to yellow lights to the extent that Rachel often gets mad at me because she's like, "You are gonna we're gonna get rear-ended because you slow down way too often on red light." And Vegas especially, we call them Vegas yellows. I think the Vegas yellow lights have a particularly long amount of time compared to other places I've been. So you can get through Vegas yellows a lot easier, but no, I almost exclusively slow down.
What player type are you?
I took a survey and it said I'm Tom Dwan, which is very accurate. There's actually, I don't remember who it was, but there was a RecPoker person that I check raise bluffed, or attempted to check raise bluff. The very first hand, or not very first hand, but like first orbit or so in Baltimore in the Ambassador Bounty. And I like just shook my head and I was like, man, like I check raise bluff these rivers way too often in the early levels. And they just like snapped me off too. And I was like, God damn it, like, what am I doing? But, I love to find a good spot to put pressure on someone when like I think their range is weak. Like, oh man, there's nothing like it. There's nothing like putting somebody in a blender.
Well, who puts you in a blender? Who's your poker nemesis?
So when I lived in Vegas, I played live tournaments just like occasionally, and Tuan Mai is a very good Vegas red. I don't know if he's still playing. He ended up, there's some increasingly shady things about him that I don't actually know anything about, but people have told me. But he would, let me tell you, he busted me from like probably it was like 3 or 4% of the tournaments that I played in. It was like absurd. Like anytime we ended up on a day 2 together, like he would just bust me. Couldn't win a flip against him. I couldn't, and yeah, it was brutal. So yeah, definitely Tuan Mai.
All right, 2 more. What's your favorite poker venue?
Win Encore for sure, by a lot.
Yeah. Nice. All right, last question. This one you can answer with a little bit more time, if you want. What's the one thing the poker world needs to do differently?
The poker world needs to understand that this is a game, and it's a fun game, and it's a creative game, and there's all sorts of different experiments you can run and lines you can take and all sorts of stuff. But fundamentally, like, people are far too serious about poker, and to some extent, like, it's sad because if there wasn't, I obviously am very happy that people are willing to gamble all sorts of money and get so emotionally invested in poker, and poker has been built into this like very like gambly thing, with a lot of money involved. But I think that if poker was like just a game, people would have a lot more fun with it. And I think people lose that fun aspect. And it's honestly compliments to RecPoker, because one thing I know that, any RecPoker person I feel like I sit at a table with is like having a good time. And that's really good. And I wish that there was more fun. I wish that somebody sucked out on the river and they got to celebrate without, a third of the people in the room being like, oh, like I bet that, that they just won the turkey. It's like, man, like let him have fun. He just won a pie. Like what's wrong? Like that's good. You don't like when that happens, like I don't know. People just take it personally a lot, and it's not supposed to be personal. It's just supposed to be a game.
Yeah, yeah. No, I love that. I love that. So thank you, Brian. You've passed with flying colors. You scored 812 points. So good job. Good job.
That's more than Jeff Platt.
Yeah.
I watched the Jeff Platt episode. He only got like 300 something. So sending him a DM right after this.
To be
he
fair,
only got 300 something.
To be
Easy
fair,
game.
he has the lifetime low score of anyone who's ever really taken it. So it's that's a low bar, but congratulations, you're ahead of Jeff Platt.
We take those.
Yeah.
Be careful though, man. He's going to be hunting you down and trying to interview you.
It's a good point. It's a good point.
Tournament.
He's in Bahamas. I'm safe. I'm all good.
I don't know. He can do it via Zoom or something like that. Well, thank you again, Brian, for coming on. Hopefully, sometime in the future you will be willing to come back on. Feel free to.
Absolutely. I had a great time.
Yeah. Feel free to hang out with us while we go through some of our other activities.
Sure.
And participate if you want. Don't feel like you got to be quiet.
Sure.
I never am quiet. As if you ask anybody, it's really hard to get me to be quiet. So I can't expect that from anybody else. So I guess next would be the opportunity for John to list off some of the home game results.
Why, yes, it is. And we can start with the No Limit Hold'em Championship Series. This was the final championship series for December, for the year, actually. And in this one, convincingly, Eric Jin got his first No Limit Hold'em Series victory for the year and secures his spot in the Tournament of Champions. But not to bury the lead, but GF Hawk Eric Romo actually won the Player of the Year points race with 307 points. Bone Crusher 14 Marcel Dusick got second place with 300 points. And not to forget that the top 24 players will be duking it out on the third Wednesday of the month this month in the No Limit Hold'em Series Tournament of Champions. Next, on December 4th, Bruce K54, Bruce Kiefer, got his fourth nightly victory for the year. Keto Man 335, Kian Tavakoli, got his sixth nightly victory for the year. East Coast Spitter Ben Enslow got his fifth international victory for the year. And Evil Roy CA David Westerveld got his seventh international victory for the year. By the way, that is bringing him to an all-time high of 63 lifetime events. And no one as of yet has gotten the 50 point to also bring him into the Lifetime Achievement Award Club. And on December 10th, Bone Crusher 14 Marcel Dusick won the LPP event. So he can contact info@rec.poker for his free month at Learn Pro Poker.
Thanks, John. Appreciate that as always. But I didn't win yet again.
No. I can count your victories very easily.
Yeah. No, there's a few more there.
Are there? Yeah. I still don't think I have to go beyond this hand, but
no, it's I'm still waiting for the thumb, but I'll get there. All right. So I think next we are up to our contest. I don't know if people I don't actually have the screen up for who is listed. So if somebody can provide those names. You got it? Thanks, Chris.
So names we've got so far, giving people a last minute chance if they want to check in, but we've got, what I'm seeing is 4 names so far. We've got Ethan, Michael, K-Poker Wannabe, and Joe Rafter. So unless, somebody wrote hello. I don't know if we count that. Should I count hello? It's you're supposed to write food bank, but they seem to maybe be trying to enter. All right, I'll enter them anyway.
The spirit of the season, right?
Spirit of the season. I'll enter them anyway. So that's 5 names. I'll roll a 6-sider.
I'll give Chris before you go. I'll give $20 every 6 that you roll. And because it's Christmas, if you roll, I will donate $20 in addition if you don't to the person whose name that you win. So every 6 you roll is $20. $20 to whoever wins and in their name. Does that sound good?
All right. I like it. I like it. So we just want to just keep rolling 6s.
Yeah, that's great.
My goal. That's my goal.
Yeah, I didn't actually put
Let's
a limit on
support
it.
some
They
food
should.
banks.
Yeah.
I love it.
All right.
I love it.
Away we go. You don't worry. I've only ever rolled a 6 like 200 times in a row. I think it's my record. So.
Well, I've been selling cans at the store, so I should be all right.
All right, good deal. All right, first one is a 6. Let's go.
Yeah.
All right, here we go, and it's a 3. A 3 gives us to K-Poker Wannabe.
K-Poker Wannabe, $20 in K-Poker Wannabe, and what are we sending them? Actually, I don't think is it the usual? Jim,
if they're not already a RecPoker premium member, they've won a free month at RecPoker. And if they are, one of the perks of being a RecPoker premium member for only $15 a month, use the code NICE this month to get your first month for only $1. They actually unlock a whole new tier of prizes, a month at Learn Pro Poker, PokerCoaching.com, Tournament Poker Edge, and a bunch of other great sites that we work with through our Learning with Partners program. So send that email to info@rec.poker and we'll get a prize off to you in no time, Ron. And it's Ron Payton is the name, Joe, that you can make that donation under. Thank you so much for your generosity, pal.
Of course. I'll get the information from you later. And I do want to say that the reason that I do this is to try to lead, to give people an idea that this is something that we should do. And I know that I never want to seem this as self-serving. This is just really an attempt to try to get people to see that, hey, let's give money, so that people can have peanut butter sandwiches and cook them however they want, on a variety of times. And nobody should go hungry on Thanksgiving or Christmas or New Year's during the time when we're all spending extra money for different things. You would be stunned at how little it takes. $5 can buy a lot of food for an individual for a long period of time. And if you've ever been poor, if you've ever been on the streets, if you've ever been needing that money or needing that food, it doesn't take a lot. And if all of us give just a little, we can make a pretty big dent in hunger in the United States and Canada. So, I absolutely encourage people to do it, and hope you'll just follow all of us here. I think that covers it, Jim. Is there anything I missed? I'm getting the thumbs up of you have completed all the tasks for today. I will await the $10,000 check that I was promised for hosting today. I'm sure it will come in the mail quite quickly. I want to again thank Brian Winter for the wonderful interview that he was able to do. I want to thank all of the listeners for coming on and listening to us today. I also want to give a shout out to the Wrecking Crew for participating, for Jim, John, Joseph, Chris, and myself for doing what we do. And have a very pleasant week, and we'll see you next time.